Okay, hello folks. This is Lanson, and this is my 2013 Flex. We're going to do hopefully a one-take audio overview of the whole system. We'll start with the power distribution, supply, and whatnot. Okay guys, this is an Optima yellow top. This is definitely not the stock battery as far as placement of terminals, and just want to take a moment to show you this here. So this is all custom. These little guys right here are from a 4x4 store on eBay that sells these wonderful battery terminals. I like them, definitely. So what I use is this Optima versus, say, the factory battery, and doing so I had to rewire the whole area of the engine bay right here. The wiring was just so specific to the type of terminals that were on the factory battery. I had to start over. This battery, by the way, is from my 2010 Flex, and it's still going very strong, so it was a good value. Okay, I've got a little flashlight here and I've got a laser pointer, so I'm just going to kind of point some things out, and we'll just use the standard light here. Okay, so right there is the factory amp meter of some sort. So I added an additional ground, tech flexed the wire, and then heat shrink. Of course, you'll probably see that throughout my entire build because that's what I believe in. And boy, it's gonna be hard to show you, but somewhere over in there, yep, there is the auxiliary ground, or additional ground if you will. You notice the two there. So that helped a little bit with getting the power out of the battery and into the system. Okay, used a nice circuit breaker, and I like this one a lot. I would say normally fuses are great, but when it comes to main power, this is an extremely convenient and safe way to go. I would definitely not use a circuit breaker on your amps. You need something that a fuse can do that a circuit breaker can't. Okay, that's my firewall to the whole cabin. Now, just a point here, this wire is 1/0 gauge welding cable. I like welding cable because it's pure copper. I know it's pure copper, and it's Royal Exceline brand. And I don't really like using automotive or car audio style wire in most situations. I mean, if someone has it and that's what they want me to install, that's cool. But for me and what I do, I think welding cable's great. Now, it is not as flexible, so there must be some care given to that, and you can probably tell because this is not flexing, but gets the job done and it's safe. So just a note for Ford Flex people, this spot right here, this right here, this was not really the smartest spot to go to mount your 1/0 gauge into your car. As it turns out, learned this in a later Flex build for another fella, but if you get your hands way down in there, it's pretty tricky, I admit, but if you can get your hands in there, there's actually a grommet that goes through the cowling, which comes right off, and into the cabin grommet area without having to go through a firewall. So don't do this. Go look at my build logs, and hopefully I can kind of show you a better way to go. Alright, and by the way, my build logs for this Flex are on ford-flex.net, and also caraudionjunkies.org. Car Audio Junkies is made up of a bunch of like-minded audio freaks like me. This is also a good point on this cane and intake, which has nothing to do with audio other than it is quite loud under full throttle. This is actually a 2011 Ford Explorer intake, and I retrofitted it straight to the Flex. And by retrofit I mean plug and play. Really exactly the same as the 2013 Flex. I was the first to do this, and K&N actually didn't think it was going to work, but they said give it a try, so I did, and I can tell you guys it works great. I think by now they've come up with an actual intake. Anyway, let's talk about this power wire. So we have it going through the car, and it is going to be very hard to show you where it goes because everything's well hidden. But let's just put some light on it. No, I don't know if it's going to show you. No, I try to hide my wires pretty far in the system, but trust me, it's in there. And it does go underneath the carpet. Actually, it goes right there, but it pokes. Hope you guys can see that. Alright, that's this wire here to the distribution block, and I hope you can see the distribution block. Let me just sneak my head in here. Some tough reaching. Okay, yeah, that works. That is a Scosche EFX 1/0 gauge to 4 gauge distribution block, and it's fused, which is always intelligent for a distribution block with power. So this little block then outputs 8 gauge to my MS-8 processor, which we'll be talking about here in just a minute, and then to 2 amps that are on the passenger side underneath the seat. And you can tell by being underneath the seat, everything's quite cozy and hard to reach. So at least it is hidden. Alright, so power distribution, and we are going to go walk over to the passenger side to see how it turned out for the amps. I'm going to poke my head underneath here with my flashlight again. Alright, lots of tech flex and heat shrink and all that good stuff. Makes it look nice, but also protects the wires. So we have 4 gauge to each amplifier. A little overkill, but you know what, in wiring, overkill is just fine. Let's talk about the ground just for a minute. You can't see it, but in here, underneath here, is the seat bracket, seat mount bracket. And what I did was I took the paint off, ground it down, bare metal, and then installed a very large ring terminal through which the seat bolt fits perfectly, and then bolted that down. Now, on the ring terminal are all the grounds for the MS-8 processor and these 2 amps. So it's one single ground point, and normally I wouldn't tell you, use a seat belt or seat mount rather, but this one worked out great. No sound noise whatsoever, no distortion, and definitely no power loss. This is a safe ground point for a Ford Flex. So that concludes the power distribution section. Now what we're going to do is move on to how the MS-8 is wired and inputs and outputs. Just walking over here. Okay, again, tight fit, so you're just going to have to kind of work with me here. So the head unit is stock, and there is no chance of you replacing this really right now or anytime in the future that I think. The way the stock head unit works, it's also the climate control and the phone display and all the other things that Microsoft wanted to work with Ford, and it's great. And that screen is basically a copy of that when it comes to, say, what song you're playing and all that. So there's no chance of that coming out. Unless in the future there is something that does make a functional difference. So in here, laser light, in here I pulled the factory wire, speaker wire, via the connectors, and then soldered wires to another nice little tight fit here, to these input wires to the MS-8. And the MS-8, we're going to go a little bit upside down. Hopefully you guys can see it. MS-8 clips in there. So the MS-8 is taking in the left front, left rear, right rear, and center inputs. And that's because that head unit is a surround head unit, and, well, quite frankly, don't even know what the head unit is doing in processing. So I have the MS-8 taking all signals in, summing them, and then outputting. Let's talk about those outputs for a second. That is the MS-8 speaker output bundle, and then that's the RCA outputs, and that little splitter is to the subwoofer channel, and that subwoofer channel is, of course, just going right to the sub amp. Now, the way the MS-8 is wired for my situation here, it only applies its own outputs to the center channel and then the left rear and right rear door speakers. And in this configuration, the pillars, which we'll talk about, and the door speakers in the front are entirely, and of course the subwoofer, are entirely amplified through the RCA wires to my amps that are in that passenger seat. So this works out pretty well because the MS-8 is powering 20 watts per channel clean to the center channel and to the rear speakers, and those are the speakers that don't need that much power. Okay, so let's go talk about that amplifier set. Car's a little dirty, but overall pretty good. I do try to keep it clean and shiny. Car detailing is my other hobby besides car audio. Okay, another flashlight run here. So this is, and I'll get more detail on the other side in just a second, this is a Vibe from the United Kingdom. There's also like a Lanzar Vibe from the States, but this is a UK speaker, or amp rather, excuse me. And this is a Vibe Slick Stereo 4, and this is a Vibe Bass 1. Now the Slick Stereo 4, I believe, is about 70 watts by 4, I want to say. I think it's actually 75 by 4. And then this one's 600 by 1 into the sub. So this works out pretty well. And the wiring here is the pillar and then the doors. The pillars are the top, which is the front, and then the rear is the doors, are the doors. Now, I'm going to slide this forward. It's slow. Okay, so you guys can take a look at how this thing is wired on the backside. It is still a very tight fit, and we will put some light on the situation. Alright, there we go. Nicely tucked in though. Again, that's all the way scooted forward about as far as it'll go. Anyway, so these amps do a pretty good job hiding themselves and providing plenty of power. If I were doing the system again, well, these are $100 a piece. So, you know, I could buy other amps. Fitment's pretty tight. You can see I've got no room there. I do have some room there, but if I was doing it again, I'd really have to check and see if there are better amps available for the money. In my opinion, I think these are still really nice. Kind of hard to get these days, but eventually all amps are pretty hard to get. So we're going to just slide this back, and then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to show you what this whole sound stage is all about. Okay. Alright, hope you guys can see that. That is, I had to put some light on that. That is the left pillar, center channel, right pillar. Now, the left and right pillars run a Dayton Audio reference series. It's RS. I'm just going to pull the grill off for you. 75, RS75, 4 ohm, and then this is a tweeter from the Dayton line. This is an ND20 FB. The FB is a reverse mount tweeter, which means it comes and mounts this way, so there's no holes or anything like that to worry about. You just cut out the right size, speaker goes in. And in my situation, I actually applied this foam, which is actually Insulite closed cell foam, and I think it looks okay. Definitely good enough. And the grill, which particularly fond of how thin that part had to be to fit properly. The grill covers these. Okay, now the pillars are covered in this perfectly grain-wise perfect match and then color perfect match vinyl. There's a little bit of imperfection here and here, but definitely not too bad for the difficulty of how it's wrapped overall. And I will say I didn't do a perfect job wrapping these, so if you're looking at this in HD, you're probably seeing some ripples here and there. Some of it's truly not perfect, and I do plan on redoing it again, but overall not too shabby. And then pretty decent fit here, and they definitely fit properly. Now, the center channel, often people wonder, hey, what'd you do with the grill? I didn't make one. I actually like the speaker showing off as is. It's probably a little dusty. Here in Vegas, we get a lot of dust. Anyway, this was made out of 3/4 inch MDF wood, and I put this bevel to match this factory bevel. So there was an intentional styling here. The spacing's pretty good overall. It's actually about the same amount of space you'll get from, say, any kind of Ford standard fit panel to panel gap. That's what my goal was, to get that kind of gap to match. Now, this is a Dayton RS 125-4. That's actually about a 5-inch speaker. Now the factory uses a 3.5 inch speaker, so this board allows me to make it work. The tweeter is the same ND20FB that you saw from the pillars. Now, you're probably doing some math. The doors, front and rear, center, pillars, there's way more than 8 channels of speakers. And that means that I had to use crossovers, passive crossovers, to get all the speakers to output some sound. So you're right, it's exactly what I did. I built custom little passive crossovers. I used project boxes, and I built them at about 30 bucks a piece, plus the project box in materials. And I used Dayton metallized polypropylene capacitors and Jansen air core inductors, 20 gauge. So it's actually some pretty high quality equipment, and the crossovers are nestled in here, which I'm not going to open because you have to remove the whole weather stripping, but they're in there, and they're on the other side. And then the center channel, its crossovers buried deep inside here. In each crossover is set at, I wanted a 12 decibel per octave, so that's second order crossover, and the crossover point is 5200 hertz. So the mids, they play 400 hertz to 5200 hertz, and then the tweeters take over. Center plays 95 hertz to 5200 hertz, and the tweeters take over. And of course this pillar matches the left side. Now that 400 hertz frequency mates to these doors. And these doors, which we're going to go pan over to the other side, these doors do not have factory speakers in them, but I left the factory opening intact. And I really debated this for a while, but I decided if the speaker is outputting only up to 400 Hertz. There's really no big deal with leaving this panel just, you know, as is. If I was planning on playing higher frequencies, I would probably have cut this out, put this grill cloth over it to match the pillars. Anyway, what's inside of here is actually a very large speaker. It's a Dayton RS-225-4. Now, 225 is an 8-inch, actually 8 3/4 inch speaker. Now this thing has a factory 5x7 size opening, so that is a very large speaker to be putting in a door, especially for the Flex, which has a limited amount of space from here, which there's this large kind of inward movement of a plastic, to here. This is actually not quite 8 3/4 inch wide. So this this mid speaker is really in there tight. And if you were ever doing a car like this, let me suggest to you, don't use the Dayton RS-2254. To mount this in here, and my build logs will show you if you ever want to look at them, it took a lot of work. So the door window glass and its mounting structure contacted the speaker when I was test fitting, and eventually I ended up adding enough space with spacers, wood spacers, to clear everything by 1/8 inch approximately all the way around. It's just too much precision, honestly. I would really suggest using a different kind of mid-range. Maybe the JL Audio Z800 CW, which is a little bit smaller than 8 3/4 inch wide, but has about the same output and sound quality, etc., etc., etc. It is significantly more expensive than the Dayton, but your time's worth money. Anyway, so the doors play from 75 Hertz and then go to 400. The pillars go from 400, and the tweeters in the pillars go to from 5200. So that makes up the front stage, and of course the center channel is along for the ride there at 95 Hertz, 5200 Hertz. The rear doors, which are the factory size, are no longer a stock factory size speaker. Well, factory speaker, it's a 6x8 JBL. Now, this was actually the speaker I used in the front doors for quite some time. It's the JBL Power 8662. It's actually a pretty decent coaxial 6x8. And of course 5x7s and 6x8s, they fit each other just fine. So the rear doors are stockish. Let's talk for a minute about deadening. Now, obviously you can't see a darn thing, but these doors would rattle like crazy if they weren't deadened properly. So they were, and I used RAM Audio, RAM mat, Insulite N, of course they're deadening, and I also used GT mat Quadro deadening, which was okay, pretty good product. I'll probably use more RAM mat next time, but these guys close like vault doors, so there is plenty of deadener in each door. Let's talk a little bit about the subs. These are Exile Audio X-Tech 10s. They're 4 ohm each, parallel together. Now, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's actually a pretty clean little setup. I'm actually proud of how this goes, because I'm just going to kind of zoom and scan here. Overall, it's pretty good with fitment. This is actually a cover board. Now, this grill, which has a couple of nicks, it is steel rod, hollow rod, mounted in between these two boards. Let's see if I can get a better shot of that. There we go. So this is wood, you know, carpet covered, wood, carpet covered. In between, with some slots made, these rails fit. Now the idea of this is this can hold anything you need weight-wise, and this was built, you know, for daily driver use. So they have to hold a ton of weight. In fact, those scratches come from parents coming by and dropping their luggage in when they came over to visit. So they definitely hold up just fine. And I will peel this back for just a second. And you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing here. This is actually a fiberglass tub subwoofer box, and it's about 1.6 cubic feet sealed. Just shoving that back into position there. Now the best part about this is that these seats can flip and fold flat and not interfere with this subwoofer box. So that was the actual design criteria, was that this whole flip and fold thing that the Flex does ruins building a large speaker box like you might find in a trunk of a regular sedan or something like that. So this hideaway design was required. Okay. I sure hope I covered all the things you need to worry about. What we're going to do is drop the hood. Don't need the hood open to play some music. Now, one thing people might want to keep in mind is I'm recording off of a Panasonic HD camcorder. Panasonic HD camcorder has a pretty decent microphone, but when you go off trying to play music real loud on any kind of recording device, the microphone's going to clip and we're going to lose some sound quality. Can't really demonstrate sound quality you know, in a video very well. So what we're going to do, I just grabbed the MS-8 processor's display, and I pulled it out of the glove box. Now it usually sits in the glove box because it's a completely set and forget product. And guys, you're gonna have to excuse me, my kid just ran out and wants to say hi, so we're gonna poke and say hi. Hi, Garrett. Alright, you're gonna have to let me finish up here, buddy. Alright. He's a cute boy. Alright, MS-8 display usually hides way in here, and by the way, this guys is the subwoofer volume. I don't really touch it very often, but you know, every once in a while there's sometimes you want to just crank it up, so that's what that is. Okay, so we are going to show, tell you what, hang on just a second. We're just going to go up here with this. There we go. Hey, that's better. Alright. Settings here. Audio control. Oh, hang on. Garrett wants to say hi. Hi, buddy.
Hi.
I'm going to go ahead and cut the film so I can get back to showing people how this thing works, but I'm going to go hand Garrett to his mama.
Sorry, Daddy.
What was that? Alright. Alright, y'all. I'll be right back.